Commander Central, episode 159, and today we're going to talk about some EDH staples and what we would replace them with if they got banned tomorrow. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
And we have a guest in the house today. Say hello, Dan Krause.
Hi, everyone. This is Dan Krause.
Dan, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Surprised to be here. Glad to be here. GP Max's house is going on, and you guys were kind enough to have me here.
You're really here. You're actually like here recording in the
Dungeon of Love.
Yeah.
And I can confirm, no pants on Max.
Not even for a guest will he put on pants.
No, why would we change that?
So Dan, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell people where they would know you from.
Let's see. I'm apparently somehow I just get around a lot. You've seen a lot of my decks on Commander Versus. I've been featured on that 4 times. I have been on Commander Social. I've helped out with Commander's Brew. Actually, coming up there, I'm going to be on one of their Battle of the Brews.
Oh, nice.
So somehow, I don't know how I've weaseled my way into this, but I just randomly show up here and there.
Well, you've been to a ton of GPs over the years, right?
Yes. It helps that my wife has flight benefits, so I just randomly show up places.
So, like, you can just go, like, I'm in the mood to go to GP Albuquerque.
Max's house.
GP Max's house. There you go. All right. So how many did you go to this year?
Actually, this year I moved to NOLA, so I only did 4.
Okay, still, that's a pretty good attendance rate.
I think that's what I'm at now. And I don't even do that
That's
many.
roughly what we did.
But I've lucked out. In 1 year, I've been able to hit Seattle, Vegas, and the one in Roanoke, SCG Con, in a matter of a very short span of time, thanks to just being able to randomly show up.
Nice. And we get to hang out with you in Vegas and play quite a few games.
We did a few.
Both at the Command Fest and just after hours in various different places as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Those dark alleyways. And
Yeah, all kinds of sketch. I mean, like, because you were there with us Sunday night when we basically closed up the GP, and then we're trying to find food at midnight with the Commander Social guys.
That's correct. I was still suffering from PTSD from that Recce deck.
It's CEDH. I tell everyone this. No one listens.
It is, having watched enough of the CDH matches at the Command Fest in Chicago, it is not playing at that level. It's a effective deck, but it's not playing at that level.
it's a solid 8.9.
It's definitely I would call it an 8. It's in the 8 range for sure. In terms of speed, definitely. So what's your signature deck, Dan? That you sit down with, what's the baby that you bring out to play?
Most likely the Krav deck, and the reason it's my signature
And it's
deck,
just Krav. It's not Regnan Krav. It's just mono black Krav.
and that's the reason it's my signature deck. The whole story of that is I went and played Justin Parnell from Commander Versus.
Okay.
And my first time I ever played him, he pulled out his Yeheni deck, and he did amazing mono black things with that Yeheni deck, and I fell in love. So next year I showed up with my Krav deck, and I played to him mono black versus mono black, and people were like,
nice.
"Where's Regna?" And I'm like, "You don't need Regna. Let me show you the power of mono black."
You really don't.
And then I proceeded to beat Parnell, and now we have
Nice.
this ongoing rivalry where I show up and we go mono black v mono black.
Very cool. I like that too. It's a thing that probably very few people are ever running.
Yep.
I like it. So speaking of having played games, did anyone play any fun games this week at their shop, wherever they were?
I did not.
Max wasn't there.
I tried to play with Dana, but he was a loser and left me early.
So I was bouncing back from a head cold, so I ducked out pretty early. But I did play one game, and I will comment on this because I dropped the ball. I had the win. I could see it, and it was a really good win. I had the play. Everything was lined up perfectly. There was down to just 3 of us left in the pod. I had a Elvish Reclaimer out and a Gratuitous Violence, which doubles creature damage. But Reclaimer was my only creature at that point in time. So no one was too worried about the Gratuitous Violence. The other 2 players were quite built up. So I was not the threat. The player before me passed the turn. Before end of your turn, I used my Elvish Reclaimer to go get a Strip Mine. Use a Strip Mine to kill his Strip Mine. And the reason for that was I was going to use a Reclaimer to go get Valkut on my turn, and I wanted the Strip Mine gone. In addition, he had a Steelbane Hydra out, and he had 3 mana. I didn't want him to also have the option to take out my Gratuitous Violence, because I needed that. That was an important part of this as well. So he used a Strip Mine in response to kill like my Ancient Tomb or something, and that was fine. Came back to me, I untapped, used a Reclaimer to get Valkut, put it in play. I had in hand, I just forget the name of the card.
Sylvan Awakening.
Scape Shift. I had Scape Shift, but the key was Sylvan Awakening. Mm-hmm. If I cast Sylvan Awakening, it makes Valkut a creature. When I Scape Shift and go get all my mountains and come into play, Valkut does double damage then. and the double damage off all the Scape Shift triggers is enough to kill both players. But I didn't cast Sylvan Awakening first.
Oh, no.
I cast the Scape Shift. And then at that point, I'm like, oh, I can't, because Sylvan Awakening's a sorcerer. I couldn't even like do it in response to fix the problem. And I had enough damage to like kill one person, take the other person down to like 6 or something.
And die on the crackback.
And I die in the crack. Like there was no way to make it work. But had I cast the Awakening first, which was the plan all along, I have the win. But I screwed it up. And yeah, there were so many steps, and I was like so excited. I'm like, okay, if I do all this stuff, I can win the game on my turn. And I messed up like the second to last step. So, and it wasn't even late. It was like 6 o'clock. It was the first game of the night.
That's what you get.
There was a lot of steps in my defense. But I lost that game, so.
I guess maybe this just means you have to put Vidalcan Ori in all your decks now.
I guess.
No.
I guess. Can afford spending it.
Isn't that a trash card?
That's cool.
It is. It's a horrible card.
It's close to $30 now, I think.
It is.
Disgusting.
I'm not even gonna get into it with this card right now.
Don't you love playing 4 CMC turn forward and doing nothing?
No, and a lot of decks don't need the flash. I don't understand the purpose of it.
I played in a deck. It's a solid enough card.
You played in Vela, though, don't you?
I played in my Glissa deck because flashing in
Another artifact. So.
Death Touch creatures, and it's an artifact, so it makes sense there. I don't agree with Josh Requide that it goes in every deck, but I think it's a solid card. So, nothing from you, Chris? Did you play any games?
I did play games, and I got hated off the table playing Mogus.
Mogus, that happens to Mogus sometimes.
Yeah, when you turn
Sometimes.
when you turn to Chandra Torch of Defiance and Ankh of Mishra, it's not a very fun game for everyone else.
Oh.
How did you turn to Chandra Torch of Defiance?
Land, Sol Ring, land, Chandra,
Yeah.
uptick, create 2
Okay.
red, play Ankh of Mishra.
Oh, she's the 4-mana one. I had it
Yeah.
confused with the 6-mana one that makes the 2 tokens.
No.
Well, you shouldn't be confused about why you get hated off the table.
No,
after doing that.
it was like my opening hand. I'm like, oh, this is like a god hand. Let's see what happens.
But I see, that's one of those plays that you know very well you're going to get hate off the table, but it's tough to not do it anyway.
Yep.
You're like, oh, but it'll be so cool to do.
Do you run the new Chandra that gives the emblem to people that deals damage to them?
Maybe.
Okay, I figured you would. I just haven't seen it yet.
It's in there. I haven't seen it yet neither. So
Okay.
How about you, Dan? Did you get any games anywhere this week?
I had the exact opposite problem. I had the horrible opening hand in Vivictus, and I've been tweaking it so hard. I've been pulling back some of the ramp in it because I'm trying to do make it play 2 different commanders. I just put the new Corvold in it.
Okay.
So I want to be able to sit down and swap commanders and make it work. Well, I went a little too far, so I had this really slow start, and I would sit there, do nothing, which actually worked into my advantage because everybody ignored me.
Sure.
Everybody killed each other, and I'm like, I swing in with everything at you to kill the last player, and he goes, aha, I have 4 life to live. I play my Goblin Bombardment, sack my board.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you die.
There you go.
But that was more luck than skill.
Well, there's sandbagging is 100% a skill that I have been known to employ in more than one occasion in a game.
and I've seen it in more than one occasion. Still try to convince the table he's a threat.
Nobody
He's not
listens.
doing anything. Just wait.
Yep.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Chris. You're slandering my good name and reputation. Well, if you would like to share with us any cool games you played, how'd you do that, Chris?
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can find us on the Facebox by searching CMDR Central. For those of you who are young, it's Facebook. For us old folks,
Yep.
it's Facebox.
I don't know if young people use Facebook anymore. I think it's exclusively old people.
That hurts. That hurts a lot.
Yeah, it kind of does.
I think it's true, though.
I resemble that remark.
You can find us on YouTube, where basically we have show stuff. We don't do like content type of deal, like talk to people. At least I don't.
We respond to comments.
We try.
Try.
You guys do a pretty good job.
I thumbs up a lot of comments.
It's YouTube. It is what it is.
It's
YouTube,
everywhere.
YouTube hates me for some reason. So you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also find us at patreon.com by searching CMDR Central. And if you are so inclined to support the show financially, it goes a long way to apparently buying me pants and sets us up to help do video later in the new year.
Hopefully the first week of the new year is kind of the plan.
Yeah, when
Yes.
Max gets a pie in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's gotta
See,
be on
I'm
video.
still winning.
For now.
Yeah.
Christmas is on its way, though. And I know many people are waiting until Christmas to buy shirts.
I am looking for... either way, I win.
Or does he?
I don't like that part of it. Like the maniacal laughter I'm not a fan of.
And, of course, you can find those T-shirts over at teespring.com by searching CMDR Central.
can also find us on flipsidegaming.com.
Yeah, use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all orders, $10 or more.
All right. I think we have a couple contests mid-swing here as well.
Yeah, for our Patreon contest this month, we're giving away some Commander Central t-shirts to 2 lucky winners. So they'll get to pick their design. If they pick if they pick my slogan, it won't count. And if they pick Chris's slogan, he's going to get -2 on his tally.
Oh,
Wow.
Seems fair.
Yep. And then for Twitter, we're giving away that Teamer and Simic pin, those enamel pins. So find that tweet, follow and retweet it, and you'll be entered to win, and we'll announce those in early December.
All right. Very good. So today, the main show topic. I want to talk about some EDH staples and talk about what we would replace them with if they got banned. I don't think they're going to get banned. I highly doubt that. But a lot of times when we do a set review, we'll discuss a card and be like, oh, this card's really good, but this card exists and this card exists, and that just makes it so unless you're playing on some crazy budget or you're being, obstinate or playing on a theme, you're just never going to run those cards because of these better ones that have already been printed. So I wanted to kind of talk about what it would take to put those cards in rotation and which of these kind of second tier cards that tend to not get played would then make its way into a deck if we lost access to these staples that are keeping them out of rotation. And the first and most obvious one here is Cyclonic Rift.
I honestly thought you were going to say Soul Ring.
Soul Ring, here's the thing with Mana Rocks. My thought process there was it's just a linear line. Like if Mana Rock goes away, you just put in another Mana Rock for the most part.
Soul Ring to Arcane Signet.
Right. Whereas Cyclonic Rift or things that are not Mana Rocks, I think it's a little more interesting because there's various different cards you might replace it with. So, Max, starting with you, like if we lose Rift, what do you swap Rift with?
Well, at instant speed, there's probably nothing as good as Rift.
There's nothing as good as Rift just in general, right?
So you could do a couple things. You could do like an Isochron Scepter Boomerang combo or Capsize. Nope, Boomerang.
Yep.
Otherwise, you have to go sorcery speed, and that leaves you with stuff like Aether Spouts and Aether Eyes or like Evacuation.
Evacuation is instant speed, by the way.
Oh, it is? There we go.
Evacuation's instant.
But it's symmetrical.
But it hits everything.
It
Yes.
is.
But you can do it end of turn, which is nice. You're the first person that can rebuild then. I think Evacuation definitely gets help. I don't run Evacuation currently in any decks because I don't usually want multiple of those mass bounce effects. But if you lose Rift, Evacuation, I think it's much more attractive. Anybody else have any more things that they would probably run there?
I looked at Flood of Tears, the one that lets you put a thing back into play if you... what was the requirements for that now?
If you return 4 more things, you put something back.
So that can get you, at least set you back up, get you back in position. And then the other one I like River's Rebuke. Granted, it only hits one person, and it's sorcery speed yet again. But if you can copy it in some way, you can maybe get 2 people, or you can recur it back from the graveyard. We can use an Archaeomancer or something like that.
Sure.
So it sort of gets there. Not quite, but sort of.
How about you, Chris?
They've said all the ones.
Said them all?
Yeah.
I agree. Like Aether Eyes, Aether Spells would do a lot of work. Evacuation's good. River's Rebuke is good and doesn't see enough play. I probably, if I'm playing in other colors with blue, I probably just run another board wipe. I usually tend to kind of count Rift as a board wipe. And if I'm playing in like white, probably just put another Wrath of God effect in there. Or if I'm playing in black,
You don't put Cyclonic Rift in the, I win the game pile with other cards?
It's board wipe that wins the game, I guess. Kind of is the thought process, but
Double duty, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to get, double duty cards.
I think in mono blue, I haven't been running Washout much in recent years. I think it's still a solid card that bounces everything of a color,
Correct.
and you would.
I still think it's pretty good in 2-color decks even.
Even in 3, a lot of times it's pretty easy to hit something that doesn't really hit you very hard, and it does wreck somebody else. I haven't been running it recently, but I think that gets way more attractive if Rift is gone. Inundate bounces all non-blue creatures, and there's a lot of blue decks where that really doesn't hit you either. But it's sorcery speed, and I think it's trip blue, trip red, or trip colorless, so it's 6 mana. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. But that's a solid card that I don't run right now, and I'd probably look at closer if Rift is gone too. Next up, the 2 white 1-mana removal spells, Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares, that if I can run in a deck, I run them. Because I have paths left over from when it was an F&M promo and from collections. I just have paths.
Yep.
It's a $10 card, and that's difficult for some people, but I just have them. Swords to Plowshares is dirt cheap. It's 75 cents or something, and it's been reprinted 15 times. It's easy to find. So if I'm playing white, I run both of those, and that excludes a bunch of other things because I don't know if I need 3 targeted creature removal spells. But if those go away, things get interesting. What do you guys look at then if those are gone from the discussion?
Well, there's 2 I really like. One is not a surprise at all, and it's Generous Gift. Came out Modern Horizons, hits everything, instant speed. It's Beast Within in white, which is probably the right color, unlike Beast Within.
Yeah, right.
This is so color corrected. The other one I like, and this is actually might be a little more controversial, and it's also from Modern Horizons, which is Winds of Abandon. Problem is you got to learn
That's
to use
a good
that.
one.
You got to learn to use that card correctly. I'm a tokens player or creature player, so that's a card you drop and you can overload it when you're ready to do the Alpha Strike. You don't play that when you're about to, I need a wipe of the board. That's not what it's for. But when you, oh my God, there's an Eldrazi out there. I can spend the 2 mana and get the Eldrazi.
It feels much better to single target cast that than it does Rift, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Max?
So I think we've talked about cards like this in the past. There's like Dispatch.
Dispatch, I think, is really one that I would consider. It's very easy to hit that Metalcraft, particularly in a mono white or like a Boros deck where you're relying on artifacts for so much stuff.
Right.
Actually, in pretty much any deck,
Yeah,
it's pretty easy,
yeah.
unless you're playing green. Then you really don't need the rocks.
Yeah, otherwise there's stuff like Condemn and Oblation. It may not exile something, but it gets a problem off the board.
Yeah.
Chris has...
Why am I even on the show today, guys? I don't understand this.
You get to go first next.
There you go. That'll solve it.
But if you want to branch out and go into maybe like 2 colors, you also have all the Orzhov stuff like Anguish and Making,
Yeah.
Utter End, stuff like that. But mono white, those would be my next 3.
Yeah, I think if you're in, like right now, generally speaking, if I'm playing in white with access to black, Mortify no longer makes the cut for me usually because there's enough between Swords and Path and Anguish and Making and stuff. Well, if I lose Swords and Path, maybe then I run Mortify if I'm in black.
I still play Mortify, and I play all the other ones too.
But you just play all of them?
Yep.
I mean, I get like
But I might
you're
have
not wrong.
I have the full art Mortifies, and it's like I just can't
sure.
justify putting them back in the box and never using them again.
I think Declaration in Stone is still pretty solid at sorcery speed, but it's 2 mana. And you have the option to like hit a whole bunch of tokens, or if there's just happens to be 2 Sun Titans out or whatever, you can kill them both.
Yeah.
That would be one I would probably definitely play more. And I think Crib Swap.
Oh, yeah.
Because in Exile, with instant speed, it does cost 3. But the main reason I don't run Crib Swap right now is Swords and Path are there. And I think if those are gone, that's definitely one I look at closer to.
Don't they get something out of Crib
They
Swap?
get a 1/1 token with Changeling. So it has all creature types. But like it's a 1/1, so that doesn't matter too much. But it can matter for you because Crib Swap does also have... It's a tribal and it's a changeling. So like if you're playing Edgar Markov, it counts as a vampire spell. There's a few situations where that's relevant. Blasphemous Act, the best red board wipe and one of the best board wipes, I would argue, in the format, just period.
I don't think there is a replacement for it.
Disagree.
Really? I have one in mind, but everyone hates me, so I'm not going to say this one.
What's your one? What do you have in mind? Jonkala Hops.
I was going to say Obliterate, but same difference.
You're missing like one of the best Gruul board wipes out there.
It's the X-red green one, isn't it?
Savage Twister?
And I said Gruul just because you need a big creature to go with it, and that's Chandra's Ignition.
Yes.
Yeah. Chandra's Ignition's fantastic. Chandra's Ignition isn't just a board wipe; it's a win con in some decks.
Exactly.
Yep. The only thing I don't think that's a direct replacement because you do need the creature to back it up.
And it has to target it too. So if you have like Greaves on it, you're SOL.
And I tend to run Chandra's Ignition in quite a few decks anyway. So like I think my decks with Blasphemous Act probably tend to have Ignition as well. But that's if I didn't, I would absolutely be looking at Chandra's Ignition for sure. The other one I was kind of thinking here is Chain Reaction. Is one I think probably doesn't see enough play. It's 4 mana. It's red, white, colorless, so 4 total. And each creature is dealt damage equal to the number of creatures in play. So for the most part,
this is a newer one.
It's a full board wipe for the most part. I mean, occasionally there'll be situations where like, there's 2 creatures out and you want to kill them both and you can't with it. But like usually if you're willing to cast a board wipe, there's enough creatures out. Just you don't cast board wipes unless there's a bunch of creatures out, so it's going to kill everything. That's probably the one that I think I don't run right now because I run Chandra's Ignition and I run Blasphemous Act. And if I didn't have access to Act, I will probably look more at Chain Reaction. Anything else from you guys?
Star of Extinction.
Yeah, Star is really good too.
7 mana, deal 20, destroy a land, and then deal 20 damage to each creature and planeswalker.
Mm-hmm.
Max and I saw Star of Extinction personally.
And we survived it.
We did.
It's actually a win condition in my Tajik deck.
Sure. Or if you're playing like Repercussion or something, some kind of Repercussion deck.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a legit card too.
I'm also a fan of Hour of Devastation.
Is that like 4 damage to each creature?
5 to each
creature?
creature and each non-bolus planeswalker.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's legit. I mean, that's going to take care of a lot of stuff too.
Yep.
Some of those are a little meta dependent, like if you play in a token meta or a go wide meta, versus if you're playing a Voltron. Like if you play in a group with 3 friends that play Voltron decks, it's less good. But there's a lot of situations where that's just as good as a board wipe.
I do have a story about Hour of Devastation.
Okay.
And I'm going to call out my good little friend Parker,
Hi, Parker.
who works at the store. We had a guy come in and ask for Hour of Devastation. And he looks at the packs and he's like, they're right there. They're $4.99 or $3.99 or $4.99 or whatever. And the guy's like, no, I need the card Hour of Devastation. He's like, it's a set. And they argued back and forth. And the store owner just sat there shaking his head because he knew what the guy wanted and just let it go until finally Parker's like, oh, yeah, that's right. There's a card named Hour of Devastation.
It was the magic equivalent of who's on first.
Yes.
Wow.
Gotta love cards named after sets.
All right. Next up, we've got the 2 big blue enchantment draw spells, Mystic Study and Mystic Remora. And Chris, I'll go back to you again, so we can't nab any of your answers here.
I actually didn't put any down for these.
This was the toughest one for me.
Yes.
I was like, man, I don't know what I would replace those with.
Because there's not really a whole lot of cheap permanents like that do something similar.
Particularly in blue.
Yes. I mean, you could replace them with like good card draw spells, in my opinion.
That's what
But
I
they're
kind
not
of thought.
recurable.
Right.
Stop reading my notes. I literally say normal blue draw spells.
Yeah, that's kind of, if you lose those, there's just not, there's Honden of Seeing Winds, which I think is 5 mana, and you draw a card for each shrine you control, which would probably just be the Honden. But it's 5, that's 5 mana to draw 1. That's a whole different thing than 3 for 6 study, where you often have to draw multiple cards.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's worth it there. You've got like Thought Reflection, where if you draw a card, you draw 2. So basically, you draw 2 during your draw step.
Yeah, you could run stuff like that, but
The closest thing, if we want a permanent base, would be like Mind's Eye. But
Yeah.
you don't want to run that in blue. You have better
think
See, I think
options
you guys
to
are
do.
missing some.
What do you think we got here?
First of all, you're missing Comenia's Awakening.
Which one is that?
2 blue. If you have and everybody draws an extra card.
Yeah, okay, yep.
And if you ascended, only you. So that's a basic
sure.
one. I like Military Intelligence. Attack with 2 creatures, draw a card.
Yeah, that's true. And you have like the also
And that's only 1 in a blue.
the military or the coastal piracy, Bite Nathasa type effects.
That's all on my list, along with Mirrored and Besieged. Doesn't that also?
yeah.
And then the last one, which is not even blue, is the Immortal Sun. Draw a card.
Sure. Yeah.
And then it gives you mana reduction, and then buffs all your creatures all in one. See, I like creatures, so you can tell I.
That's true. That's
Yep.
true. Okay, yep.
I think the best one overall is probably Kumena's Awakening because
Yeah.
like we don't like. I mean, this is so straight up where you hit ascend, you jam this, and no one's ever going to draw a card.
Yeah.
And it's not. There's no downside to it.
Although military intelligence is pretty easy. The thing about coastal piracy and Bident is you tend to, at 4 mana, you tend to want to be able to go wide with those. Military intelligence, it's only drawing you 1 card, but it's only 2 mana, right?
It's 2 mana, and I think it's only 1 or
So-
2 creatures that have to attack.
Yeah.
So it's 2.
And it's an attack trigger, not a combat
Yeah,
trigger.
so that's
Yeah.
much easier to. So that one I think is much more universally useful too. I like that one. Okay, good call. Well, we just did those in blue. So how about the 2 big black permanent draw spells, Phyrexian Arena and Necropotence? Necropotence. I'm gonna get yelled at for saying Necropotence again. Necropotence.
Who yelled at you the first time?
Multiple times. Whenever I say Necropotence, I get like somebody on Twitter or something being like, "That's not a word."
I'm fine with it. Just keep doing it.
It's the Wisconsin way to say
I
it.
guess.
Do you mind if I take this one real quick?
Go for it, Dan.
Because I have strong feelings about Phyrexian Arena and Necropotence.
All right.
I'm actually not a fan of either one of those cards. I think in black, you're slowing yourself down. Don't get me wrong, Necropotence, and actually the only reason I don't like Necropotence is amazing. It's fantastic. But I like my graveyard, and I like putting cards into the graveyard, and I like pulling them back out. And I think unless you're doing something very specific, Necropotence can actually hurt you.
Sure.
And then Phyrexian Arena, like I said, you jam it on turn 3, you draw a card the next turn. You need, 2 or 3 turns to get its value back, where a Read the Bones, Sign in Blood, your typical Night's Whisper, Altar's Read, Costly Point. I mean, there's so many cards in black that just dig you. And then you go into Greed, and what's the other
Bullet
one?
Fast. Argyle is Bullet
There's
Fast.
so many
Erebos.
There's so many cards that just are more efficient and get you there faster.
Yes.
And dig you deeper. That I think Phyrexian Arena and Necropotence are on the fence for me. I don't actually run them in any of my decks, except for one where it cares about enchantments hitting the field.
I agree to a degree. Necro especially, I feel like you're in a casual EDH game playing Necropotence is doing something that maybe that game doesn't want you to do. Like if you're playing it casually, it's maybe not even a very good card. It's meant to be played as a game-winning card and maybe a higher-end level. Like if you're playing at a higher level, if you're playing casual EDH, it's actually not that great. So I agree with that. Arena, I absolutely agree with you. All those cards tend to be maybe better than Arena. Mm-hmm. Why not both? I tend to run Arena and a bunch of flat draw spells.
So I tend to pair my black with other colors, and then that gives you even more card draw. So
the upside to Arena is that it's just a static. You don't have to put anything into it. You just get the card.
I've also found as the game has gotten a little bit more developed, Arenas gets tough to remove now. Not that I don't want you drawing an extra card, but I'm also like, okay, it's one card per turn, and I have one enchantment removal spell in my hand, and I'm much more scared about the next person playing Murray's Wake or Doubling Season or Grave Pact or whatever. Like as far as enchantments go, once upon a time I got the argument that it was if you played it, someone removed it right away, you got nothing out of it, and that's true. But I also now feel like I'm always hesitant to remove a Phyrexian Arena because something much worse is almost always going to hit the field the next turn or two.
I won't lie, I'll never remove a Phyrexian Arena.
Yeah,
as much as I don't like the card, but
it's tough to justify removing it nowadays. So that is a plus for it. How about you, Max? You have any cards here you want to throw out?
Dan covered the three on my list. Yeah,
Max doesn't play black.
That's very true as well.
One counter argument to the Phyrexian Arena getting removed thing. Has anybody ever countered your Sign in Blood?
I don't think so. Although
just as good.
I did have an Ambitions cost countered fairly recently.
Oh, wow.
Draw 3, and you still lose the life because that's part of the cost, I believe.
Yep.
Or no, it's draw 3 then lose 3 life. So I didn't, but yeah, I had one of those countered fairly recently by somebody.
It's better than a Force-Willed Sylvan Library on turn 2.
That was the right play, and I don't care what anyone says about that.
I agree with you. It was the correct play. I'm just salty about it.
I think the other card I might consider that didn't get mentioned here is Necrologia, which is instant speed, but it can only be cast during your end step. As an additional cost to cast a spell, pay X life, you draw X cards. So you're just going to draw 3 or 4 at your end step for 5 mana and lose some life. It's, for the most part, going to be roughly an Ancient Craving or Ambitions cost, so you cast at end step. I think if I want to look to add one more, if I'm losing Arena and losing Necro, I might look at that one as well. I like that card. But I never quite run it because between the read the bones, Sign of Blood stuff, I don't really have a slot for it because I do run Arena too, but losing Arena, that might change. All right. Next up here, black, since we're in black, let's keep talking about black stuff. The 2 best black board wipes, Damnation and Toxic Deluge. If we lose those, Max, what do you go with?
I go with Decree of Pain.
Yeah.
Wow, you jumped the fence from like 4 mana to 8. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yep. I do the same thing.
That was kind of my thought too. I'm on board. I was like, I run those because they're super efficient. But if I don't have a super efficient board wipe, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm greedy. Maybe I go greedy then and just go with Decree of Pain. Chris's face palming here.
Fine. Niv's Disc. Are you happy now?
No, you got like Crux of Fate.
Which is 5 and can
So
backfire.
Inguruk's Wake is 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's on my
you're
list
still
too.
below
But
the 8.
Hey, you can cycle that card.
You can.
You can.
actually, one that's severely underplayed probably is Necromantic Selection. It's
that was
7 mana. It's from the Commander 14 originally. Destroy all creatures and return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. It becomes a black zombie in addition to other creature types, and then you exile Necromantic Selection.
So you just grab the
best thing you
creature.
destroyed. Yep,
Though this is where I argue. I'm sorry, Max. You're just not the black player.
that's fine.
You missed its better cousin, Living Death.
The only thing with Living Death, I would say, and Living End to a degree is you tend to kind of have to build your deck around them.
But we're black players. That's what we do.
That's true. That's true.
What black player doesn't have a sack outlet?
I would say this. I was looking at my black, because I thought about those, and I was looking at my black decks, and I'm like, I don't think any of my black decks want Living Death.
Right.
What?
Yeah, I just don't think none of them are built in a way that where I would trust myself to be able to take advantage of it consistently. I do have sack outlets, but I feel like
Vela's not doing
Put a
anything.
ley line of the
Yeah.
void in there, so when you activate it, all those cards are just gone forever.
I mean, I've gotten completely blown out.
You're evil. You're straight up evil.
I mean, I've gotten completely blown out by Living Deaths before.
yeah.
It's absolutely a house of a card. But I think it's tougher to do a straight replacement with unless your deck does a specific thing.
Well, then in that case, you got to build your deck specifically around. The other two I like are Mutilate and Dead of Winter.
Both of which, if you're playing mono black, I feel like you should be running both of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think Languish probably does a lot of work too.
But before Languish, I'm going to run Black Sun Zenith.
Yes.
Yeah. Particularly if you have a friend who's playing Skullbriar. Because those counters stay on Skullbriar.
I have seen that happen before.
Don't bring that up.
It happened to Max once upon a time.
Aw.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
like
sad
one
day.
of the few ways you can. Yeah,
Thank you for new life goals now.
Skullbriar's just gone then for the most part.
You know, I haven't seen a Skullbriar deck in years, neither.
Someone in the shop has one. There's a
Really?
newer player who has one. Yeah.
Nice.
Interesting.
I like it. You tried it in 1v1 once.
Yeah, it went wonderful
And then,
for a while.
And then someone black something at you and you lost.
Oh, did they really? Oh, yeah, that's rough. Okay. Well, this card came up before it got mentioned talking about white stuff, but Beast Within in green. This was a tough one to find a replacement for.
Apparently, when you break the color prize,
Yeah. When a color pie is completely broken, there's nothing that you can replace it with.
Yeah, honestly, in green, you're already running the other ones. Your Lignify, or the 3-mana enchantment that turns it into a land.
Song of the Dryad.
wow, look at what's on my Song of the Dryad.
Kenra's Transformation.
You're already playing all those cards in green already, so...
If you're not playing one of them, I might replace. Right, that's maybe what I go with, or maybe another like naturalized Croatian Grip kind of card.
Force of Vigor.
But there's nothing really that does what Beast Within does.
Just another big creature. That's what
Right,
you replace it with.
See, what you do is you replace it with liquid meta coating. Because you're already playing all the green to destroy artifacts.
That's
You
true.
start turning things into artifacts to destroy them.
Hey, liquid metal coating legit.
High five. I like that.
When I've built mono red decks, I always put liquid metal coating in it.
Do you?
Because I usually run like 4 or 5
Because of a whole bunch
artifact
of-
removal
yeah.
spells. And just having the option, or it even has been a situation before where someone's had like a doubling season out and everyone's like, oh man, I can't remove it. I'm like, I can make it an artifact if that helps. Like, it actually does.
I've been looking for somewhere to put the Sword of Sinew and Steel and a liquid metal coating in and just be like,
There you go.
Don't tell my roommate first. Put that in Squee, please.
I should.
I
He'll
keep
hear it
forgetting this is
eventually.
a podcast and nobody can see me face palming. Like,
Yeah, you're sitting over there just, no, stop.
Since we're discussing ones that are tough to replace, how about the 3 blue creature removal spells, which are Pongify, Rapid Hybridization, and Reality Shift?
Well, obviously it's Imprison in the Moon, but you should be playing that too in blue.
Probably should be playing that anyway.
bingo, we have a winner.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, blue gives you bounce. That's
Yep.
about
So
it.
And that's
so you
exactly where I
go with
went.
bounce.
Counter magic.
Capsize.
The
More
only
counter
one-
spells, yeah.
I added is Curse of the Swine.
I put that's in my notes as well. Like I've currently taken it out of the decks where I was running it. I ran it for years and I'm no longer running it, but it would go back in decks if I lost those 3 spells. And those 3 are so good. In my Dimir deck, I'm running those 3 over the black removal spells. And that then changes. Like if I'm my Dimir deck, I'm like, well, now I'm putting Go for the Throat back in and I'm putting, Murderous Cut back in.
Well,
So-
just because they're cheap.
They're cheap and consistent.
Yes.
And color breaking again.
Yeah, and in Commander, giving your person a token is much less costly than it is in 1v1.
True.
So, yeah, that you probably just go with other colors, or a mono blue, you just go with bounce, or maybe some more counter spells too.
Yep.
Well, one more one that maybe doesn't have a good replacement is Harmonize in green.
I disagree.
Disagree.
Well, there's other things that draw you cards.
All right, I'll
but
give you
there's
that.
nothing that's just like I'm just drawing 3 and I don't care what's happening. I don't care about anything going on in this game. I'm drawing 3 cards.
So I run Harmonize in my Savala deck, which is a Hydra Tribal deck.
Okay.
And I would argue if I took that card out right now, I would never even miss it. I would actually you got me thinking now that I actually might
You
need.
don't want it?
Because
Just put another Hydra in.
I'm going to go off on a little, let's see, Guardian Project, Nissa Vital Forest, Lightcrafter's Bestiary, Beast Whisperer, Greater Good, Aura and Firstfang, Hunter's Insight, Rishkar's Expertise,
Return of the Wild Speaker.
Return of the Wild Speaker, and that's the new one I need to add yet. So
Yeah.
Yes, there's some setup involved, but
Right.
there is a lot of card draw in green, and I know I barely even touched the tip of the iceberg.
I got into a huge argument with someone at the shop once when I said green was the best color in Magic, and they're like, "It is not." And I
liked witnessing
I
this
started
argument.
listing everything off, and he finally stopped. He's like, "You might be right." I'm like, "It is the best color in Magic."
Well, I saw somebody on Twitter made a post the other day like, when did green start getting color or card draw? Things went wrong when I started giving him card draw back in,
Planar Chaos.
Well, it was like 3 sets ago. And I'm like, Sylvan Library came out in the Legends 22 years ago. Green's always had broken card draw. So, Harmonize. I actually have an EDH Rec article that's coming out in the next couple of weeks about why is Harmonize good, and the divination
He's doing a good article.
It is. Yeah, I'm like, why is Harmonize good?
I was hoping for another card I could troll him on.
Dana, you are literally reading my mind because we were discussing this earlier. I'm like, so how is Harmonize this good, yet, what was it, divination is just like, meh.
I went through the whole list of why that is.
It doesn't make sense.
Because blue has instant speed.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
one of the reasons, yes. But Harmonize is a tough thing to directly replace in green, but there's a bunch of other options, absolutely, like Hunter's Insight, or even there's green enchantments that can go on creatures, like the equivalent of Curiosity. What's
Keen
the green?
Sense.
Keen Sense, things
yep.
like that
And
you can do.
Sixth Sense? There's two of them.
There's two different ones.
Yep.
There's a ridiculous amount of draw in green if you get down to it.
I think if it was a straight up replacement, like you had to replace it, you just put in Beast Whisperer. It's 4 mana, straight up swap. It wouldn't hurt your mana curve, wouldn't do anything to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you have to have creatures.
You don't have
You're
creatures
playing
still.
green, you better have
Hey,
creatures.
Things
Hey.
have gone wrong.
hey, I think I just listened to a deck you played
was
that
gonna
was
say.
artifact green deck. So
Yeah.
sometimes it happens.
That deck still has me mind boggled.
He just posted actually in our Slack a tweaked version of it that's not running forests.
What?
Yeah,
Now I'm intrigued.
or he's taken even most of the green stuff out of it, so it's down to mostly artifacts and creatures, and he's running lands that aren't forests for mana sources.
Interesting.
What?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Anyway, all right,
All right.
off topic.
Yep.
All right, next up, the best black tutors, Demonic Tutor, Vamp Tutor, and I guess I'll mention Imperial Seal, even though it's super expensive. Those are the two basically super bomb, cheap, inexpensive black tutors. So if those go away, what other black tutors you replace them with, or do you just not run tutors?
Diabolic Intent.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Hard agree.
That makes sense.
Except only scumbags run tutors, right?
Oh, I run all of them if I can. I have been becoming a fan of the new 1 mana one out of M20. I don't remember the name.
Scheming Symmetry.
Yeah.
I'm finding it very nice, political, fun card to play because it is a vampiric tutor for 2 people.
Yep.
And you get to choose someone to do it with you. So, I mean, it sets up, and usually whenever someone's played it, they've always chosen the person who's way behind. And they're like, okay, I'm way ahead, so I'm going to go for this, and then I'm going to give you a chance to tutor. Because obviously there's something that's keeping them from way behind.
And if you are picking them, odds are pretty high that maybe you're not in the lead or you wouldn't be casting it.
Yep.
So you can hope that if they go get an answer to something, too, it'll not be hitting you.
Yeah. I had my buddy cast it, and he chose me the one day, and we were both far behind. And I had Fires of Invention out, and I ended up going for my mana barbs to lock everyone else out of the game.
I love
And
it.
there's also that situation, too, where like what they go get doesn't matter because you're going to go get something that's going to win the game, too.
Yeah.
That's one I definitely am looking at for sure.
I'm a big fan of Dark Petition.
I like Dark Petition as well. That's the other one on my list. That's the one out of Origins that has Spell Mastery. It costs 5 mana, but you get 3 black back.
Correct.
And technically speaking, that can fix your mana too. You can only spend 1 black on it, and you can get 3 back. So you can technically, if you need to, use it as a way to adjust your mana a little bit too. But yeah, many times by the time you cast it, it's just going to be Demonic Tutor.
So being the black player that I am, and I like pulling things in out of graveyards, I don't mind cards that put things into graveyard. So I like Final Parting.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Card.
And then in the same vein, Insidious Dreams.
I've seen that, but I don't remember what it is.
It's discard X cards, go tutor X
Oh, okay,
cards,
yep.
put them on top of your library, which sounds horrible, but hey, when you discard your big nasty creature and you tutor up just a reanimate to the top of your deck.
Sure. And then just draw that next
Yep,
turn and
draw
reanimate.
next, yep.
Yeah.
And then I declamor your Phyrexian Arena and you shuffle it all back in.
No.
What?
You monster.
And see,
Well, no, so you understand Insidious Streams and Villas just says discard X cards, draw, go get X
Yeah.
cards, because you got it
Right.
right there
Yep.
on the card.
Right.
So the other one I like is Sidisi Undead Vizier,
I
Yep.
like Sidisi.
Sidisi's really solid.
because you can recur it, and then Razaketh,
Yep.
the expensive,
Who
but
doesn't see much play.
Yep.
right.
7 or 8 mana, something like that.
8, and then you sack
He's an
something.
8/8 flyer or something
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
He really only works in a mono black deck because he's got
Yeah.
those 3 black pips. And then the last one, I mean, if you're going to go all out, let's Cruel Tutor.
Oh, yeah, right. And Runescar Demon actually said that was pretty good work, too.
Oh, yeah. And you get a big old Death Touch blocker, right? Is he
Yeah.
Death Touch? Yeah.
Doesn't have Death Touch. He just has
I'm
flying
flying.
and
I'm
trample, I think.
surprised no one mentioned Liliana Vess.
Oh, yeah.
She tutors.
She vampire tutors, and she can do it twice if she's left alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump the CMC up again, like I did earlier. Diabolic Revelation.
That's not a bad card though, especially in
Right.
black because you're playing like your Urborgs and your Cabal
Yeah.
Coffers,
Yeah.
where you could have so much mana you don't know what to do
Right.
with it.
X, 3, and 2 black to tutor X cards
Yep.
to your hand. Done.
So I actually tried, was it Mausoleum Secrets? No, it's what was the one out of that where you get to,
It has
the
Undergrowth on
Undergrowth. What card was that?
it. I don't remember.
Yeah, but I tried that for a while, and the fact that you have to reveal it actually hurts.
Sure,
Like, as a
yeah.
black player, you're like, I got to, no, I want to keep my secrets.
Yeah, that makes a big
I
difference.
still look at people when they're like tutor. I'm like, "What'd you tutor?" and
They
they
still
go
show
to
you
they go to say
sometimes.
something, and they're like, "Wait, I don't have to show you."
I actually have been running less tutors in most of my decks. A lot of times I used to, years ago, run 2, sometimes 3. Now I'm down to 1 or 2 in most of my decks. And I've been eyeballing dropping down to 1, or I wondered if I lost those 2, if I wouldn't just maybe not run a tutor. I don't know. But I've been using them way, way less.
It also
than I
varies
did.
on like per deck.
Depends,
Like,
absolutely.
for instance, with my Mogus deck, I do have quite a bit of card draw in it, but there are times when
Yeah.
I want to know that I can just go tutor this card. I'm set up, good to go.
The one thing I found I run them. I don't run them in decks where there's an obvious thing to get every time. That's one of the reasons I've quit running my Vela deck, is because if Vela's in play and I have the mana, I just can go grab. If you kick it, you can make 5 copies.
Right, a replication.
Replication on Vela just deals 6 damage to the whole table. It's almost always gonna kill everybody. So
See, this is what you do. It's called a wonderful thing I was taught as a child: self-control.
Right. But then you have the problem, but then you're like, well, I could win right now, and I'm choosing to not win. So that's also kind of
But
crappy.
it's
to
also
bring to the
nice
table.
to have that, though.
have it as a- have
Dan
it as
and
an
I were
option.
actually talking earlier about such an instance where someone has a pillow fort set up and you just
Sure.
can't do anything.
For sure.
That can win you the game.
Yeah. But then I just have to hope I draw into it, I guess. And I do have a good amount of draw in that deck as well.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to balance. You're absolutely correct.
Got to have that nuclear option once in a while.
For sure. And you have a way to avoid the nuclear option, which is our next card, Fairy's Protection.
This one was hard. This one was so hard for me.
I don't think there is one. This is really a huge color pie break, in my opinion.
I mean, it's a really kind of a singular card that ducks even Rift,
Yeah.
which most things don't do.
And see, I could find things that would like save you or save your board,
But not both.
but not both. Like Dawn Charm, Worship, and then if you go green, you got Heroes or Heroic
Intervention.
and things like that. But you can either save your board, Unbreakable Formation, saves the board, but not you. So,
The 2 I were thinking of are 2 the max runs that have blown me out a bunch of times, and that's Ghostway or Eerie Interlude.
Yeah. Saves your board.
Saves your creatures at the very least,
Yep.
which for the most part is usually enough. Man, the amount of times I've cast a board wipe and Max is just like Eerie Interlude, and I'm like, son of a.
And it's usually in Dramoka, so there's
Right.
a bunch of flyers coming
And
back.
I've gone from being like, well, it's worth the cast a board wipe because I only have 2 creatures and Max has 4, and that person's got 6, and that person's got 4, and then suddenly Max has 4 still, and no one has anything else, and I'm down a card and I'm down mana. I'm like, well, I just time walked myself basically that turn to make it easier for Max. Thanks, Max. I'm your teammate. I just helped you out. But that's what those cards feel like. So
Yeah.
that's what I think I look at as those 2 especially. Because they also get around Rift. By exiling your creatures, they get around the mass bounce, too.
Yes.
Which the indestructible stuff doesn't. Not that Heroic Intervention isn't also a great card, but it doesn't stop
They had to
Rift.
change the phasing rules. They could have just left it alone the way it was.
Let your tokens die.
Right?
Let me save my tokens. I want my tokens.
They need to live so you can skull clamp them next turn.
Damn straight.
All right. So this is we have a couple ones here that are kind of a list. Because there's a lot of counter spells in the game, but they tend to not get played because there's a collection of ones that are just so obvious. We're talking the free ones. We'll start with Force of Will, Pact of Negation, and Force of Negation. The two great blue ones, which are Mana Drain and Counterspell. The two great modular ones, which are Mystic Confluence and Cryptic Command, and then maybe Swan Song doesn't belong on this list, but I love Swan Song, so I put it on the list anyway. So if we lose those, what I would consider probably the best counterspells in the format, Chris, what do you go with for your counterspell suite then?
Arcane Denial, Delay, Negate.
I wanted to hear
there's
something else
quite a
out of
few
your
of
mouth.
them. What?
I expected you to just say cancel. He set you up for it, too.
I missed out on that
It's
one
the
real
first
hard.
one on my list.
That's my first three on the list are Arcane Denial, Negate, and Delay.
Yep.
Same here.
Hey, how did I'm surprised you didn't also put Stubborn Denial on your list.
It's Onslaught of Denial's on there, and so is I have a Mana Leak maybe.
Void.
But,
I'd rather run Void Shatter before Mana Leak.
I'd rather have Power Sync if I were going to run
yep.
one that has an X cost because it forces them to tap out to
They
pay
have,
for
they have
it.
to spend their mana for it. That's
I
true.
mean, there is no other way around it unless they counter your spell.
Yep.
So even if they do, they can pay for it. You still force them to tap out, so it sets up for your next play.
Syncopate is along those lines as well.
Yeah, that's not bad. I also put was it Spell Swindle, which is
Ooh, that's a really good card, though.
yeah.
That could replace, honestly, at the 5 mana slot, Mystic Confluence.
Yeah, because you're gonna best case you're gonna get more mana back.
Yep.
Worst case you get 2 or 3 treasures for next turn, which still are useful.
And then you use the Revel in Riches and win.
Yep.
Wow, I almost bought one of those the other day, and I was like, no, we're not going down that scumbag route.
And obviously we're talking 75%-ish commander here, because when you're getting into the higher level, that's when stuff like Spell Pierce and Daze gets way better. But like where we play, it's much tougher to do anything with a Flusterstorm or a Daze or a Spell Pierce. I think Memory Lapse gets much more interesting if you lose access to those. That's an old out of homelands. Counter a spell, and if it's countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library. That's usually enough to buy you enough
There's
time.
another one that puts it on the bottom.
Hinder.
Too.
Hinder, which costs 3, and so does Spell Crumple, which costs 3. But Memory Lapse is nice because it only costs 1 in the blue.
I also like the one that if you counter and it's a creature or an artifact, you get it. It was in Conspiracy 2.
Oh, that's such a good card, too. I can't
like
think of
6th
it.
edition.
Not Spelljack. It's
Sorry, Ken.
we'll pause here, Ken.
It does.
It does. Desertion.
Yes, there we go.
Desertion.
So
We
let's,
found it. We got it. Yeah, I do. I mean, the suite of counter spells, once you get past those, gets way more interesting. But it becomes kind of tough to dig that deep when those first 5 or 6 are so strong. I guess budgetarily, Force of Will and Pact, and even Force of Negation isn't cheap. Mana Drain still super expensive. A lot of those are pricey.
Mana Drain is way more expensive than it used to be. It just keeps going up in price for some ungodly reason.
Because Commander players talking about it on podcasts.
You know what? I blamed Commander players the other day in the store. Somebody was like, oh, why are these cards so expensive? I'm like, it's those darn Commander players. They don't know when to stop buying stuff.
so it wasn't Pioneer cards, obviously.
It's almost like that Commander is like this really popular format, and then maybe WotC's finally recognizing that.
Well, it's a popular format. I would say it's a popular format. It also has a player base that tends to be a little bit older, and maybe they can afford to spend money in dumb way. I don't know. Maybe dumb ways isn't the right word, but like they can afford to splurge in a way that maybe your average F&M player, doesn't in a way.
Yep.
So they can, this isn't the best use of my money, but I'm going to buy this dual land anyway, even though it doesn't make my deck that much better. So I think there's that factor for sure. Looking at you, Max.
I only have a few extras in the binder.
How many? I have a full art Teferi, Hero of Dominaria.
I know you do. I know you do.
All right, the green overruns, the 4 big ones here, we'll say are Overwhelming Stampede.
He changed it.
I did. I
just
fixed it.
noticed it now.
I had Overwhelming Stampede in there twice.
He changed it recently because I downloaded the notes this morning and I have 2.
Okay.
Overwhelming Stampede, Triumph of the Hordes, Overrun, and Crater Hoof. So we lose those. Where do we go?
Pathbreaker Ibex.
Pathbreaker Ibex is maybe better than Crater Hoof, just sometimes in general anyway.
Kamal Fist of Kroza.
Who you can use the overrun ability multiple times if you need to, because it's not a tap ability.
Yep.
Yeah, Kamal solid.
Does Azuri only hit elves to give them the overrun, or is it any creature?
Max will look that up and tell us for sure.
Elf creatures.
Just elf creatures.
Okay. There's the Garuk that has it that's much less reliable.
And then what was the new one? The new mini.
And Haze Forerunners or something like that. I don't remember what it is.
And to raise Forerunners out of Shadows of Innistrad block.
I remember someone jamming on me in draft, and I'm like, "What's that card doing?" I read it. I'm like, "Oh yeah, good game."
You earned that triple green.
It's not quite an overrun.
It's not quite a Crater Hoof, but it gets the
Yeah.
job done most of the time.
I like Goreclaw.
Yeah, Gorklaw's good.
Because he gets on the board early. People don't realize it. He gives that little buff, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races. And combine it with which card?
Finale of Devastation?
That's the one. You go use your finale for X equals 10. Go get anything that gives your board trample. Congratulations, you've just made your big, ginormous overrun.
There's the Ronus that doubles your creature's power when it comes into play as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've been talking about some stuff that's tough to replace. We'll go back to one more here. Sylvan Library.
Mary's Guile.
That was the first one on my list, too.
Yeah, that's kind of...
I just bought one last night, a Judge Foil, because they're super cheap right now.
Nice.
I have Abundance on my list.
Abundance kind of does the same thing.
Top.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I actually put Lifecrafter's Bestiary. So if you're in green anyways,
Sure.
you're scrying, and then you get to pay the one to draw a card when you cast a creature.
True.
It's a really useful effect, but there's a couple things that kind of would get you there that I wouldn't... Scroll Rack as well kind of does a similar thing.
That's not cheap anymore either.
It is not.
Dang Commander players.
Yep.
I know. Gosh, they play this peasant format, and they just make everything so expensive.
How about Regrowth and Eternal Witness?
You can start, Chris. He's pondering.
I don't remember seeing that one on the list.
Oh.
Well, how about... we'll go to Max because I know what his answer is going to be.
I do too.
Seasons Past.
Seasons Past.
I also have Den Protector on my list.
Hold on
Yeah,
one second.
Protector's pretty good.
What's the new hotness? Come on, tell me the new
Once
hotness.
in Future.
Yes, once in future.
That's the 4-mana one
Yeah.
card? Yep, that's a pretty good card.
It's essentially 2 regrowths in a way.
And then Verdant Confluence also gets you up to 3 things back.
I know there's a Eldamri something or another where you reveal X green cards or something like that, and you can return X cards from your graveyard.
I also think Skullwinder does a pretty good job of being an E-Wit.
Because it has Myriad.
And it does. You have to pick one other person.
Oh, okay.
So you can do the scheming symmetry thing where you can make a deal with somebody who has something that you can. Oh, that's useful. If you get that back too, that'll help us both out. So you can make a deal with who you use it, or you can just be like, I'm gonna Nihilo Spellbomb you, and then cast Skullwinder, and I will choose you, who I just hit and emptied your graveyard. So like, there's some pretty good flex with Skullwinder there as well, and having a Death Touch body is pretty relevant. How about you, Dan?
I've got 2 more on this list. I'm going to add Wildest Dreams.
Yeah, Wildest Dreams is really that's where you discard X cards from your hand and bring that money back.
Close. That's actually my next one.
Okay.
Wildest Dreams is the X spell.
XX
yeah,
green
yeah.
from Aether Revolt or
So
Kaladesh.
it's not cheap, especially as you scale it up. But if you're just paying essentially 3 mana to get a card back,
It's just expensive.
Yep.
It's a recollect at that point,
Yep.
basically.
And then the other one is Nostalgic Dreams, and that's the one
it.
you're thinking
Yep.
of.
Which is nice, and I ran it in my Recce deck for a while because there was plenty of times where I would hit that point where I've just drawn 4 lands in a row, and I'm like, I'm just going to ditch those lands. I don't care, and get back 4 things.
Yep.
So that one's really solid as well. All right, last but not least, the Haste artifacts, Lightning Greaves, Boots, and Whisper Silk Cloak are probably the 3 most frequently used pieces of equipment in Commander, either because they protect your creatures or give you haste, or unblockable in the case of Cloak. What are your replaces with, or do you replace them?
I don't think you're going to find anything that gives you both haste and protection.
Particularly not that efficiently.
Right. So there's stuff that gives you haste and like Chariot of Victory or Sword of Vengeance, and there's stuff that gives you hexproof like Mask of Avacyn or Haunted Cloak, but nothing that does both.
And
Efficiently.
the combination is kind of what makes those so good.
Yeah.
Now, if you add some colors,
Sure.
you get some things that work. Like, I'm a big fan of Rhythm of the Wild. You can either haste, make them bigger, and they get
I agree.
uncounterable. So that's not too shabby. You want to go big, Akroma's Memorial.
Yeah. There's also the new artifact. Is it a wall that taps to give your creatures haste?
You're stealing my thunder. Because it's Crashing Drawbridge.
There we go. Yep.
And the beauty of that is it gives all creatures haste.
Yeah.
And
All
people,
creatures,
you may or may not see that this weekend in a Layla deck.
All right. It's nice.
I'm fine with getting haste. Give it to me all day.
Yep.
Chris likes that Concordant Crossroads action.
I attack vigorously.
I think these are tough to replace. I agree, because it's a combination is what makes them good, and the efficiency. There are situations like there are decks I build where I'm like, do I care about Lightning Greaves? I'm like, not that much, but it's so it's 2 mana to give a thing haste and hex or in Shroud, and Shroud, a lot of times doesn't matter if it's Shroud. You don't care. It's you're not targeting your creature anyway. In some decks, there are situations where Lightning Greaves is good because it's just so good.
Yeah.
And if you lose it, maybe there's nothing to replace it with because nothing is
So
close.
I wonder if those cards did disappear, if the land, the Watchtower would disappear, Glaring Spotlight would disappear, those types of cards that people run to get through that
to
kind of
remove it.
stuff.
I wonder, because then the only things with hexproof you care about maybe are meta things like this person plays a Sigarda, this person plays a Ural.
Yeah.
See, in my Vivictus deck, I still care about targeting things quite a bit, and I still would run a Arcane Lighthouse.
Yep.
Just because I'm worried about things
Just
like
in case.
asceticism. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Okay.
Sure,
Because
that
it's
makes
still
sense.
out there.
But that's a very specific deck too. I think generally speaking, I've seen people who are like, I run the Arcane Lighthouse in all my decks because of Greaves. Well, if Greaves is no longer a thing, then maybe that does change it to a little bit. I agree that I think there are some decks where those things do go away. But like in your case, it makes sense in that one where you just want to
You want to be able to target no
Are
matter
you
what.
saying decks are unique and specific,
They
and
are.
they have their own
They
requirements?
should be. They absolutely should be.
I mean, I just can't go to EDH Rec and say bye.
You probably shouldn't do it that way.
Oh,
If
oops.
you want to, you're welcome to, Max. I'm not going to tell you how to play.
You will just judge me
I'll just
harshly
judge you
because
for
we're,
it.
we're
Right.
that close of friends.
Right, exactly.
Well, I mean, he
All
still
right.
hasn't got that humans deck done yet.
He
So.
doesn't.
Nope.
And end of the year is what he said.
Yep. I got another month.
He's got time.
No, it's Ikoria is going to show up and shiny new thing and be like,
I don't want to finish this anymore.
I got Theros before Ikoria.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's when all the commander stuff comes out with Ikoria. So all the new hotness is going to come out, and Max will be like, "Ooh."
It is going to be an interesting 2020.
Or it's going to turn into his Tassiger deck all over, play it once and rip it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that deck was bad.
Well, we asked you, Dan, where you went in 2019. Where are you going to go for GPs and stuff in 2020?
Well, like I said, we started off with GP Max's house.
Yep.
Right, and then from there in February, I'm heading to Austin to visit some friends, and I know I'm doing Vegas, and there's a good chance I'm going to do Seattle for sure.
Okay.
The new move to New Orleans has we got to get unpacked, settled in, and we're saving for a new house. So
Sure.
that may actually slow me down a little bit. Plus, my wife is she actually likes spending time with me, and apparently the Austin event is over Valentine's Day weekend, and I've already
Ooh.
sucked up a lot of aggro that way.
Yeah.
So, and I can't do much in June. I'll do SCG Con Summer. I'll do that one for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll see you at a few of those then, because we're
Yep.
going to try to do SCG Con. We're trying to do Seattle. Max will do something in Austin.
I'm doing Austin in February for sure, and maybe in January for the Magic Fest too.
We'll do Vegas again.
Their GP is not Magic Fests.
It's a Magic
don't care
Fest
what
at-
anyone
It's
says.
a GP at a Magic Fest, so you're both
That's
right.
not how it works.
No, I agree with you. It's GP.
For us old schoolers over here.
Right?
I'm not MFing.
It'll always be Myanmar to me. Okay. That'll wrap up this show. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show's edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDR_Max. You can find Chris at YSquishy1. And you can find Dan at...
DP Krause Jr. On Twitter. Oh
All
my
right.
gosh, you caught me on by
I
surprise.
did.
Nobody wants to listen to me.
I just realized that as I was thinking, I'm like, man, I should have thrown where people can find Dan in there. We'll be back on a Thursday with another Deck Tech. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
And apparently I'm Dan.
There we go.